The war in Ukraine is now in its fourth year. During that time, the front moved just a few dozen kilometers, but every meter cost thousands of lives, tons of ammunition, and millions of dollars. And just these days, a new name has come to the world's attention: the village of Dachne. Russian media reported their units have taken control of this village southwest of Pokrovsk. It's not a large settlement. Dachne has a few streets, a few houses, and small agricultural areas. But the consequences of occupying this small village could be much greater. I am Faktosh. I share facts, interesting topics, and mind-blowing mysteries. Dachne isn't directly on the front line where Russians have fought so far. Administratively, it's part of the Dnipropetrovsk region. The Russians did penetrate this area on its outskirts some time ago, but Dachne is the first village they have occupied here. For Moscow, this is a propaganda win. For Kyiv, it's a painful blow. Pokrovsk, which is located nearby, is a key transportation and logistics hub. This city is the hub for main roads, railways, and supply lines supporting Ukraine's Eastern Front defense. If Russia cuts off Pokrovsk, part of the Ukrainian forces could collapse. For months, the Ukrainian army has said Russians are trying to encircle Pokrovsk from the north, east, and south. The capture of Dachne therefore fits into this broader picture. It's not just a few streets under Russian control. It's a move in the chess game that Moscow is playing to exhaust Ukraine and gain control over Donbass. Russian forces here are launching a classic ground offensive, heavily using artillery and aerial bombs. They aim to break Ukrainian defenses, push troops from strongholds, and clear a path to Pokrovsk. However, Ukrainians are resisting strongly. Despite problems with ammunition supplies and a shortage of soldiers, they are trying to hold Dachne and its surroundings, or at least slow down the Russian advance. Their tactics are quick counterattacks, drone strikes on Russian supply lines, and sabotage of bridges or roads. The front in the Dachne area is currently changing practically from day to day. Russians report more advances, but Ukrainians say fighting for the village continues. The area is not completely secured because part of the village may still be subject to gunfire. Both sides have heavy losses, but exact numbers aren't given. But according to Western estimates, hundreds of artillery duels take place daily in the Pokrovsk area. Experts point out that even a success like Dachne costs the Russians hundreds of dead or wounded. The video continues right away. I just want to quickly ask you to subscribe, like, and share. In a few seconds, we'll continue. The content isn't over yet. Dachne's capture is important both militarily and geopolitically. Moscow wants to show that it can still advance and gain new territory, even if it's small. Vladimir Putin wants to show both Russia and the world that the war is going well. For Ukraine, this is politically sensitive. Kyiv won't admit the front is shifting west, closer to central Ukraine. This is why Ukrainian communication about Dachne remains very cautious. Western analysts don't view the capture of Dachne as a major strategic turning point yet, but warn it's a warning sign. It suggests Russian forces might advance into areas beyond their stated goals, like Donbass or Crimea. The question is, where will the Russians go next? They could try moving toward Dnipro or Zaporizhzhia. Both of these cities are huge metropolises that serve as key economic and transportation centers. Experts agree Russia currently lacks the strength for such an advance. Capturing cities like Dnipro or Zaporizhzhia would require a huge number of soldiers, tanks, and aircraft. Such an operation would cause bloody street fighting and many deaths. It seems that Russia's goal is to slowly move close enough to these cities to be within firing range. Even just the threat that Dnipro or Zaporizhzhia could come under Russian fire would cause panic among the population and could weaken Ukrainian morale, which Kyiv has struggled to handle. Pokrovsk is the main focus on this front, important both militarily and logistically. Railway lines pass through, supplying Ukrainian units across Donbass. If Pokrovsk were to fall, or even just be surrounded, it could cause a domino effect and further Ukrainian retreats. That's why the Ukrainian army is determined to hold this territory even with heavy losses. The Ukrainian command knows losing Pokrovsk would be both a military disaster and a major psychological blow. Let's take a look at where it is currently located in terms of the front line. This map is from Ukraine's Deep State project, a reliable source that typically reports frontline movements with a delay for security reasons. On the map, Russian forces appear near the village at the junction of Zaporizhzhia, Donetsk, and Dnipropetrovsk regions. It's visible in the red circle. Geopolitically, Dachne's occupation has an added dimension. It could impact any future peace talks between Moscow and Kyiv. Moscow might want to use the new territorial reality as a bargaining chip. Russia claims that it is willing to negotiate, but only on its own terms. However, those terms have not changed since the beginning of the war. Moscow wants Ukraine to accept losing its territories and abandon plans to join NATO. Kyiv, however, rejects any agreement involving territorial loss. For Zelensky's government, this is a political red line, and even the majority of Ukrainian society would consider any compromise a betrayal. Moreover, Moscow uses every such small victory as fuel for the domestic propaganda. Reports about the further liberation of Ukrainian territories are already running in Russian media. Though just a small village, it's a media jackpot for the Kremlin. Ukraine communicates cautiously to minimize panic by not disclosing front movements. They also don't want to discourage their Western partners from supporting them. That's why Ukraine mentions heavy fighting, but rarely admits losing specific locations. The occupation of Dachne village now symbolizes a larger war. It's more than just a few streets. It's proof that the war in Ukraine is far from over. The Russians are trying to push further west, and that every such change on the map can have huge consequences for all of Europe. Ukraine faces a tough question today. How much longer can it defend its eastern line? If Pokrovsk falls, what comes next? We don't know the answers yet, but we know that names like Dachne show how fragile the situation is, and that this war may still have many dark chapters ahead. If you want more analyses like this, don't forget to subscribe and like, and write in the comments what you think about the Russian advance in Dachne. In fact, Ruud is saying goodbye for today, but mysteries never sleep. See you soon, and don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss any more mysteries.